Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at Hasbro's Power Rangers Lightning Collection Mighty Morphin White Ranger, which is an interesting choice for their first of the Mighty Morphin figures. I'm not sure why they wouldn't go with green and just really catch everybody's attention, because everybody knows Green Ranger's the best Ranger. But this is a good release. I think this is a nice one to start off the line. I like White Ranger personally, so that's fine. It's just weird that they picked the one that's not really part of the group, you know? Kind of strange. But anyway, they did, and just like with Lord Zed, they did a really good job overall. It's very interesting to me that Hasbro's making this line, because it doesn't look like a Hasbro product. Not really. Not based on what they're used to anyway, with, like, you know, Marvel Legends and whatnot. So pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. Before we get into anything else, I want to point something out. This looks like it's not a prototype figure to me, or a test shot or whatever. It looks to me like it's a render, because literally everything is perfect on it. And here's the interesting thing about this. If you zoom in right here, this is going to be relevant later. Okay, look at that wrist. Look at the direction of the arm, and then look at the hinge in the hand. The peg is going up this way, and it can't do that. And that's going to be a problem on the final figure. We'll talk about that in a minute. But look at that. They lied. They cheated. They either photoshopped it or cheated with the render, because obviously when it's on the computer, you can change it however you want. So keep that in mind. Okay, let's go back to the main part of the review. This guy stands just about 16 centimeters, which makes him pretty close to 6¼ inches, which is probably too big for 1/12 scale, but for the whatever scale that Marvel Legends and almost all 6-inch figures come in, it's actually in scale. So let me grab a Marvel Legends figure. Here's your standard Bucky Cap mold, which is like your very average build. And there you go. He's just a little bit shorter, which makes sense because he's supposed to be a high schooler. So that's fine. I think that's good. In real life, if this was 1/12 scale, he'd be like 6'4" or 6'3". So that's too big. But for this, it's fine. So I like that a whole lot. I'm glad that he's not extra tall, that he's a little bit shorter than like Bucky Cap. I think that's pretty much perfect. Now, as far as the aesthetics go, they did a good job. I mean, it's mostly just molded white plastic, and then there's some paint on it. But the paint on this one is pretty clean. I've seen others that aren't. The gold band up here looks all right. The wrists and the boot things look good enough. You can see there is some chipping. It's not bad, though. The little black wash in there, or maybe they just put it in deliberately. Either way, that looks pretty good. The armor, the black is painted on top of the gold, and that looks pretty good. I think that's pretty clean. I like it. And then for the head, it's a better likeness by far. Not even close. Better likeness than the SH Figure Arts. It's fine. He's a little shiny, sweaty looking, but it's a good likeness for sure. Paint-wise, sculpt-wise, I like it. My buddy said the head was too small. Randall, if you're out there, I'm not going to say which Randall so nobody can take any blame for it, but if you're out there, man, you're nuts. The head looks fine. The only thing that looks weird is the neck doesn't have the bunchy material on there, so it looks a little odd. But yeah, that looks fine. That's good. So let's swap out the heads and look at the other head so that we can talk about the aesthetics of the helmet, and then we'll give a rating. Something I love that they did on this is that the plastic for the helmet is clearly deliberately a different plastic. It is shiny finish like you would have on the actual helmets. Not like straight up gloss, but it's definitely got some luster to it, whereas the rest does not. So that's great. And then we have the paintwork on the helmet, which is almost perfect. It's freaking good. It is really, really, really good. And the sculpt is there. It's all sculpted too. So, man. Now, for all of you people who have been telling me I'm too hard on Marvel Legends, check yourself, because this is from the same company at the same price point. It's great. Aesthetically speaking, 9 out of 10. There's almost nothing they need to change on the aesthetics. It is really freaking good. Really, really good. I like it a lot. The wrinkled pants, I didn't even mention that. Wrinkled sleeves, it's accurate to the show. Proportions are accurate to the show, give or take. You know, it's a really solid release. Okay, on to the accessories. We do have our helmeted head and our unhelmeted head, as you saw. Then we have some interchangeable hands. For the right side, we have one fist hand and one gripping hand. And for the left side, we have one fist hand and one karate chop hand. And those are okay. And then we do have his sword, aka Saba, which is done mostly really well. This is something that they kind of screwed up though. They painted the entire cat head silver. That's 100% wrong, so that's a big time bummer. But otherwise, the sword looks pretty good. And then we get this blue effect, which I guess goes on the top of Saba. I don't remember that ever happening in the show, but we get a little mini blue explosion for the top of the sword, which is kind of strange. So accessory-wise, it's not like a huge amount, but it's definitely good enough. And I'll give it a 7 out of 10. They could have fixed Saba or given us the extended and the short version, something like that to just kind of level it out a little bit. Also, it would have been really nice if this was a separate piece so that it could rotate, rather than doing this, because if you put Saba in there, once you try to pose him, you're going to get some limitations. So that could have been an accessory. That would have been nice. Okay, on to the articulation, which is really, really interesting. And I have to say, just looking at this in camera, it's very strange for those of you who don't film stuff, how different things look from real life to on camera. And that's even with me being at the same angle, generally speaking. This looks so good. The proportions are so much more like a regular human. This is by far better looking than the Bandai stuff that we were getting in the Legacy line. And it's by far better looking than the SH Figure Arts. Accuracy-wise, it looks so good. And just looking at it through the camera made me notice that even more. Anyway, on to the articulation. We do have a hinge, which allows it to move forward and back. And of course, you get similar range with this head, so there's nothing. I don't need to swap it out. Full rotation. Little bit of attitude on that ball peg, not a ton, but that's fine. The vest, the armor, is just a floaty piece, which looks like they put on before they put the arms on, so it's not coming off unless you do some tinkering. I wouldn't want to do that anyway if I was you, but it's a floaty soft piece, so that's kind of cool. For the shoulders, we get a really good butterfly joint, like exceptional butterfly joint, with our ball hinge, our standard ball hinge, which is really stiff. I don't know why that keeps happening on these guys. I've had this problem. There, we'll do this side. They're really good. They're really good ball hinges, but they're incredibly stiff until you get them moving. But you can raise the arms up better than horizontal. Just be careful. Make sure you get the pressure when you're trying to lift it as close to the hinge as possible. Don't come out here and do it. Then, of course, you do have your full rotation, not counting the armor. Bicep swivel, double jointed elbow. It's weird doing it on this side of the figure. I always do it in my right hand, and I can't do it with my left hand. So you get your double jointed elbow, that's fine. And then we have our wrist swivel, and oh crap, it's a horizontal hinge, which in the photo, they had it pointing up so that his hand could lean forward and hold the sword properly. I'll bring it back out so you can see it. But look, they put the wrong kind of hinge on the wrist for no reason at all. That hinge is useless for a weapon like this. He can't hold it properly. I mean, no, he can hold it like that, but that's it. Whereas, you tell me what looks different. Look at the angle of the sword. Here, I'll get the arm even closer to the same pose. Put it back a little bit, just like that. You see the difference? You can't hold the sword the way he's holding it in the photo. Oh, there, that's the way it's supposed to be, like that. Which is a problem. It's not a big problem, obviously. I'm making a big deal out of it because it's getting annoying. Hasbro keeps giving us this kind of hinge when they're supposed to hold a weapon like this. It's just stupid. The hinge should be the other way so that the sword can move like this in the hand. But whatever. Okay, that's enough of that about the wrists. So then we have a diaphragm joint, which is a single ball peg up here and an upside down ab crunch down here. No waist swivel. Typically speaking, that's a problem because you can't lean the figure to the side. It ends up breaking the sculpt a lot. On a figure like this though, if done properly, it can be good. So is it done properly? It pretty much is. You get a really nice diaphragm joint up there, which frankly would be enough on its own. But you do also have the ab crunch to help. So because that diaphragm joint's good enough, you can kind of get that lean to the side. Otherwise, most figures only have this ab crunch and a little diaphragm joint, and so they're stuck leaning forward no matter what. But this guy does get a little bit of lean to the side, so I'll allow it. I will allow it this time. I still don't prefer it, but with a good diaphragm joint, you can pretty much get away with anything. And it's a good one, so that's nice. Now for the hips, we can bring the legs not completely forward. They do kick out to the side a little bit, but just barely, so that's really nice. They don't go back really at all. They do go out to the side really far, which is nice, almost the splits. You get your thigh swivel, you get your double jointed knee, which is really good. And then, do we get a boot swivel? Yeah, we do. We do get a boot swivel in here, which is helpful because the ankles, you'll see in a second, So they don't go forward very far. It's kind of a hassle. You have to get them to overlap, and then they still don't have a ton of range. It's not terrible, but it's not a ton. Going back is fine, of course. That's really good. And then you get your boot swivel hinge for the ankle rocker. And that's a pretty good one, but it does start off at an angle, so with the boot swivel, you get a pretty much perfect ankle rocker out of that swivel hinge. So that's really, really nice. So the articulation on this guy, overall, with the exception of the one wrist being not what it should be, it's pretty exceptional. It's at least as good as your Marvel Legends figures, plus some, because we have the great, what's that called? Butterfly joint, and then we have a really nice diaphragm joint, good ankles, good hips, good shoulders, no lollipops. It's like what you would expect. This is exactly what we deserve for a price point of 20 to 25 bucks. This is exactly what it should be. Hasbro did it, which means they can do it again. They just don't. So articulation on this guy, I'm gonna say 9 out of 10. It's really, really good. So time to talk about it for the final verdict. This is a great example of what you should be getting for your money. I mean, it's as simple as that. Typically speaking, Hasbro has not lately, on a regular basis, been giving us what we deserve for our money. This figure is a perfect example of how they can do that and how happy people can be with their purchase, rather than just buying a figure and saying, well, it's not as bad as it could have been. We shouldn't have to make that sacrifice. And this is a great example of how to do it. So I'm going to give this figure an overall rating of 9 out of 10. It's an exceptional release. It's highly accurate. It's very well articulated. It comes with a decent enough batch of accessories. It's really, really nice. I'm very pleased with it, and I think you guys will be too. There's no comparison against the Bandai Legacy line, and there's really no comparison even against the figure arts. Sure, the level of finish is nicer on those, but they're not quite as posable in most cases, in some ways anyway, and they definitely don't have the right look because they're all just skinny tube people. So this is the way to go. Hasbro is apparently the leading maker of Power Ranger action figures at this point. Who thought I'd be saying that a couple years ago? Wow. Well, there it is, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. And if you didn't, you can give it a thumbs down if you want. But it's not something I would recommend. It'll make you feel bad later, probably. It might. It probably won't. And then I do have thousands of videos on the channel, so you can check those out at your leisure. And I do have new videos up almost every single day, so make sure you come back for that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.